Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside congregation in Rio Rancho. Whether you are here in person or joining us later online, we are glad that you are here. I am Dave Kuhn, Service Associate for today. Our speaker is the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, our consulting minister. Our service is titled Tender Heart. Tender Heart is the name of a child character in the book Papa, Do You Love Me? By Barbara M. Jessup. We will be exploring various aspects of Father's Day through this Messiah story. Our service is founded on Source 2, Words and Deeds of Prophetic Women and Men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. We hope that you have a keener sense of this source in your life at the conclusion of our time together today. Today, we offer thanks to the team of people helping us to bring this service together. Brand Castecht for our animal ministry moment, Carol Eaglehart for the music, and the camera work for our online service. Bram and Roxy Castecht for greeting us at the door, and today a special thank you to Priscilla Remke, our office administrator, who worked with the swamp cooler company several times this week to get our swamp coolers up and running for today's service. So, here are the announcements for the week. The bin for Storehouse West is on the patio outside the social hall. You may drop off your non-perishable food donation at any time, 24/7. Our paper caper continues. You may leave your recycled newspapers for Rio the dog in the bin marked for her. Today, following the service, we will hold our town meeting. We will take a 15-minute break between the service and the meeting. Bottled ice water will be provided for your comfort during the meeting. There are several important issues on our agenda, as we have noted in our midweek newsletter. So please attend our first on-site, in-person town hall meeting in well over a year. Now, please stand as you are able and join me in the responsive chalice lighting in your bulletin or on your screen. Louis Pasteur said, "Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity, and it is the torch which illuminates the world."
May our chalice flame be that torch for us, embodying all that is right and just and loving in our lives.
Shalom and
Blessed be.
Please join me in affirming our aspirations.
Life is a gift.
We
gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom.
Please remain standing and open your hymnal to number 360. Here we have gathered.
Side by side, circle Days of our lifetime, whether strong and great, we of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can, sing now together, is our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regrets, but in the shadows, let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship, this our heart's own song. Please be seated. I invite you now to join me in a moment for centering. Sit back in your seat, relaxed yet supported. Uncross your ankles, your knees, your wrists. Close your eyes if you are comfortable doing so, or choose a focal point for your gaze. Let your mind go blank. Focus your attention on your breath. The relief as you breathe in. The release as you breathe out. Breathe slowly and deeply. In and out, and in. Relax into the rhythm of your breath. Into your mind, let an image of a time that you were affirmed by a male figure important to you appear. Perhaps a teacher or a coach. Perhaps your father or stepfather, a grandfather, a boss who mentored you, a neighbor who loved you. Examine your memory. Revel in the feeling of approval, of love, of affirmation. Hold that feeling gently. Resist the impulse to unpack it. Just feel it. Just feel it, and know that this is always available to you. This is part of who you are. As you return your focus to your breathing, bring your whole self back to the here and now. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Shalom. It is with a note of sorrow that I share with you the news that Melinda Lewis's dad died this past week. Here is what Melinda has to say. I'm going to read her words to you and then light the memorial candle that is down on our table in front. Melinda says, "My father, Dean Lewis, died Monday morning. He had a good life, a long life. For the record, the man was 94. A swift decline and a gentle passing. Who can wish for more?" And she and Eric would also like to honor Eric's father's memory. Now I'd ask Dave to go and get our joys and concerns. Thank you. Each week, we share our personal joys and concerns with each other, building a network of care within our community. For each one, we will light a candle. If you have a candle to light at home, we invite you to light it as we light our last one here. We will begin by lighting a candle for good hope for Dana, who is looking for a good place to live in his upcoming move. And you've probably noticed that his name is in the bulletin for today as our service associate. And while Dave is a guy, they don't really look anything alike. That's because Dana's really busy with his move and let me know that he needed to take care of that. So I promised we would light a candle of all kinds of good intention for him. I also have a joy on behalf of Melinda and Eric. They celebrated their 22nd wedding anniversary yesterday. And her dad did perform their wedding ceremony, so it's a multi-level sort of occasion here. And from Judy, I am very pleased that Juneteenth is a national holiday, but hope that voting rights, good medical care, housing, water, employment, etc. will be forthcoming soon for people of color. I'm not sure if that's a joy or a concern. I think it's a little of both. Yes, absolutely. And I also have from Julia that the Reverend John Marsh, who was her internship supervisor, died. His webpage begins, "There is life and there is death. Everything in between is a potluck supper." Thank you, Julia, for sharing that. And finally, we will light one last candle for all that we still hold in the privacy of our own hearts and minds. We light this red candle in honor of the victims of racial violence. We are glad for the newly inaugurated national holiday of Juneteenth. We hope the rising awareness of racial oppression in our nation brings real and lasting freedom to all. Shalom. And now I invite Bram to come and share our animal ministry moment with us.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
This is a couple of puppies, and they say, realize the importance of friends. You can be an individual, but to get the most out of life, you need to share some space with others. Love, companionship, friendship, and sharing make the world a more secure and less lonely place. Now this dog says, if you got lost, If you got lost, I would find you. If you got hurt, I would help you. If you got trapped, I would save you. If you got abducted by aliens, I would cripple their ship's computer system by uploading a virus somehow. For you, I would swim across the deepest ocean. For you, I would jump across the widest sea. For you, I would race across the biggest country. So now that you know all that I would gladly do for you, maybe you can do something for me. Give me a name braver than Wiggles.
We're going to attend to some housekeeping here. And I'm going to slide this back just in case it was the fan.
Switch. Oh, I think it went out again.
Well, imagine it on.
It went out
Imagine the
again.
flame being on.
What?
The flame went out again, but we can imagine the flame being on.
Oh, well, and you know what? I can fix that by not having this oscillate.
Just move it to the right over there.
While Dave is fixing that, let me begin by telling you that our moment for all ages this morning is the book, Papa, Do You Love Me? It seems like an appropriate title for Father's Day. It was written by Barbara M. Heaven only knows how you pronounce her last name.
Josie,
Is it Josie?
yes.
It's Joose.
Yeah, but she
So,
says Josie.
okay. And what I want to share with you first, this is the story of a Maasai father and son. And there are several words throughout her story that she uses in a very particular way to the Maasai context. And it would be helpful for you to know what they mean in the story before I actually read it. Some of them are quite simple and you would probably be able to figure it out. But since she went to the trouble of including them in a lovely illustrated glossary at the back of the book, I wanted to share a few of them with you, and then we will read her story together. First off is the term birthright animals. A cow, a ewe, and a female goat are given to a Maasai boy when he is young. The animals are particularly significant because they are the start of his herd. Then there are cattle that have a particular meaning. Cattle and children are a Maasai father's greatest treasures. When two Maasai meet, they exchange a greeting, which means, how are the children, how are the cattle? And then there is the word enkang. This is the word used to describe a Maasai settlement. Traditionally, Maasai women built igloo-shaped houses out of mud and cow dung, the two materials that are easiest to find. The houses are surrounded by a circular prickly fence. At night, cattle are driven into the center of the enkang to protect them from predators. And the last one I wanted to share with you is the child's name. He is called Tenderheart. Like fathers everywhere, Maasai fathers call their sons special names. They often reflect a connection to their ancestors. So there's a little background, and let's begin with the story that goes like this. Papa, do you love me? You came from your mama, whom I love, your grandpapas and grandmamas, whom I honor, and from me. You are my tender heart, and I love you. And I will show you the pictures, even though I know you can't see them too well, just because they're beautiful. How much? I love you more than the warrior loves to leap, more than the bush baby loves the moon, more than the elder loves his stories. How long? I'll love you as long as the wildebeest run on the Mara, the hippopotamus wallows in the mud, and the Serengeti rolls to the sky. Papa, what would you do if I was hot? We'd rest under a greenheart tree. What if the sun scorched the leaves and they dropped off the branches? Then I'd stretch out my blanket till you were cool in my shade. What if I was thirsty? You would drink water from the calabash. What if the calabash was dry? You'd fill it from the river. What if the river was dusty and the creek was cracked? I'd teach you to look for hidden streams and push through dry earth until you reached water. Then, tender heart, we'd splash sweet water over our tongues. Papa, what if I was the herd boy? I would be proud. What if I was the herd boy and I ate roasted meat till my belly was round, and I tried to stay awake and I tried to guard the cattle, but my eyelids got drowsy? Then I'd show you how to stay awake. Together we'd sing to the full white moon and dance to the sweep of stars until your eyes were bright. What if I fell asleep anyway, and hyenas crept in and killed a cow, and it was my birthright cow? Then, tender heart, I would be angry, but still I would love you. What if I was afraid? I'd wrap my arms around you so you could hear my heart beat like a drum. What if hyenas blinked yellow eyes at me? We'd throw back our heads and howl, howl, howl till they slunk away. What if a lion prowled in our camp, swished his tail, and rumbled for food? And what if I was his food? Then, tender heart, I'd shelter you with my shield. I'd shake my spear at the beast till his great mane trembled and he cowered in his den. I'll care for you, love you, and teach you, always, because I am your papa and you are my tender heart. The end.
This is where we speak about gifts of love and commitment. As your treasurer, I am especially happy to thank you for all your continued generosity. And without your financial support, Westside could not be here. We thank you for all your contributions of every kind that make us who we are. And I'll just say a little bit before more about our financial situation. We are a money ahead right now. We're bringing in more money than we're spending, but in the next few months, we are going to have some very major expenses. We are going to pay an insurance bill of about $4,000. We need to pay for the repairs that have been done and will need to be done for our slot cooler. And we know now that we have, Jay and Michael Kane have started looking at some of the damage to our structure in the building, and there's a lot more to be done. And I have no idea how much that will cost, but I anticipate that we'll be in the red for spending more money than we bring in for the next several months. And that is why we really all appreciate your generosity. So I guess it's time for us to sing from you.
We can sing our customary song, a cappella. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Now, I don't really need to introduce Fanny, but I will anyway. Man of the hour, Fanny is going to share a musical reflection with us that is extremely appropriate for Father's Day today.
Couple of thoughts. Father's Day is different from other holidays. Most holidays in this country have become basically banquets, feasts, barbecues, and more recently, sources of political argument. Father's Day is a day that basically acknowledges the reality that in our society, fathers just don't get no respect. They really don't. And I go back to my own experience as a single father, and you know, not only when I took Jory to little kid parks and playlands, you know, did I get the dirty looks and fingers pointed at me, but several times women called the cops because obviously a guy hanging out with his kid is some kind of prevert. Better do something about him soon. So, anyway, 2 years ago on Father's Day, I had the great privilege of standing here playing this with Jory. That was truly, I don't know the correct word. Joy is not enough. Satisfying, truly one of the great moments of my life to be able to play with my son, who, as most of you know, is one hell of a musician. So he's off with his son now today. Oh, and I brought a plant for some father. Some father here wants a plant, and if no one wants one, with his father, I will offer that plant to Elliot in case he decides someday to become a father. That's your start. Start first Father's Day plan in advance. Okay. You were on the road, must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past, it's just a goodbye. Teach your children well that father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the ones you seek, the ones you go by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them inside and know they love you. And you of tender years can know the fears that your father grew by. So please help him with your dreams. He seeks the truth, your truth before he can die. Teach your father well that Bumpy's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the ones you seek, yeah, the ones you go by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry, so just look at him inside and know he loves you. Jory, I love you.
Thanks, Danny. That was wonderful. Today is Father's Day. And you know, we have a problem with Father's Day. It's nothing like Mother's Day, although it was actually founded in response to Mother's Day. Equal time, you know how that works. I first realized how different the 2 days actually are when I was working as a psych nurse with adolescents. When Mother's Day, which comes first in the calendar year, arrived, my staff begged for the day off. Not because they were attached to their own mothers and wanted to celebrate the day with them, but because the teenagers that we took care of often had passes to go home and celebrate the day with their families. While that generated rich material for their therapists to deal with, it was awful to work the evening shift that Sunday. The kids came back agitated and upset. If the day had gone well, they were overwhelmed with guilt about putting their mothers through the hell of their own hospitalization. If the day had gone poorly, they were overwhelmed with despair about a relationship that needed so much healing. They came back assaultive. They came back drunk. They came back high from smoking weed with Dad in order to cope with Mom. And they all came back needing to tell their story, to be listened to, and to process their really intense feelings. Which, when you have 15 kids and 3 staff people, means that someone has to wait their turn. And while waiting is never easy, it was downright ugly on Mother's Day. So any experienced staff person wanted the day off. Expectations for Mother's Day were so high that there was no way that disappointment wasn't going to happen. It was more important, emotionally speaking, than any other day of the year. Now, contrast that with Father's Day. Staff didn't request that day off unless they actually wanted to spend it with their own fathers. The kids went on their passes home and returned without major incident. If anything, they were a little bit subdued, sad, but able to cope with whatever imperfections in their family dynamics had been revealed during the day. No aggression, no hysterics. It was a totally different kind of occasion. Cultural expectations for the day were vastly different than those for Mother's Day. And while Father's Day was easier, there were far fewer emotional outbursts to deal with. It was clear that wasn't necessarily a healthy thing. The kids had learned to have different expectations of their fathers, to not put as much meaning or value into the holiday in their honor. It was a case of lowered expectations making for a more bearable occasion. Now, I'll confess that that was over 40 years ago. It was my first clue that there was something weird going on in our culture in regard to fathers. Fast forward to our UUWC program team meeting last month. We looked at the calendar and realized that Father's Day was coming up.
the question was asked, do we celebrate that this year? No such question was entertained for Mother's Day. This is not the first time we've had to decide whether or not and how to celebrate Father's Day and struggled to make a decision. It kind of feels like maybe we're selling out to the patriarchy on one hand, and on the other, we're back to equal time for mothers and fathers. I decided that perhaps it's time that we confront our issues and find a better way of dealing with them than this annual uncomfortable question. So here we are, and please, you can tell me what you think later. When I started to work on this service, as always, I took out our hymnal to choose music for the service. Now, if you'd like to do this with me, pick up your hymnal in your pew. And starting at the back of the book, because it's ever so much easier to find this way, open it to page 672. Although, yes.
No page number. Oh,
It's way, way in the back. It's part of the indices.
okay, there you go. I got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So on page 672, which you will see an entry for fathers, and there's no music after it. It does say in parentheses, see parents. So I thought, okay. So being an orderly-minded person, I thought, well, alphabetically, let's see what's there for mothers, because they come next in the alphabet. So if you turn over 2 pages, which actually brings you to page 676, mothers also actually says the same thing. There is no specific listing, it just says see parents. So okay, I'm expecting great things here. So I go over to parents on the facing page, and there are half a dozen hymns there. So I promptly looked them all up. And I have to tell you, if we had time to read all the lyrics of these 6 hymns, you would realize that one is a lullaby, one is a reflection on childhood, and 3 others mention mother once in passing in a 2nd or 3rd verse. The final one is a hymn to God in which the original text has been updated from saying mothers to parents in one place. But there is nothing of substance in regard to either mothers or fathers at all. In fact, the one hymn I could find that does have content of substance in regard to a parental figure isn't even given credit for that in this index. All of which is by way of saying that it's not just us, it's not just our congregation that has trouble with these parental holidays. It is in fact our entire official denomination. Our second source reads, words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Ideally, that should start for all of us with our parents. Isn't the primary task of parenthood, after basically maintaining life and limb, isn't the next primary task supposed to be to show and tell us how to live and love in the world? One would think that parents would come in for special mention in our denomination as the first contact with that source in our lives. And yet, if our UUA hymnal is any representation of what matters to us enough to sing about it, they don't. Mothers get a passing nod, and fathers are hung out to dry. We have a problem, people. Our principles start with the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That would include parents, no matter how imperfect, no matter how many unresolved issues we have with them. And despite those issues, we are still resolved, according to our principles, to treat all parents with justice, equity, and compassion. which is what I think the founders of both Mother's Day and Father's Day had in mind. So how did we get to a place where we have no official support through our music, which is a blend of thinking and feeling wrapped up in art? Why is it that we don't have any way of honoring those who nurtured us from the cradle and instilled the values that equip us to confront the injustices of the world with the transforming power of love? I'd say that we're all here this morning, right now, because someone, somewhere along the path of our lives, did that for us. Someone taught us what matters most, and someone showed us how to live our lives based on those values. It might not have been our biological father, or our stepfather, or our grandfather, or our mentor, coach, or teacher. It might not have been our foster or adoptive father either. It might not have been any of the many different kinds of fathers that we recognize in our lives today. But it might have been. In fact, it is likely that the majority of us can point to a male person who nurtured us in some valuable way, extending the concept of fathering to embrace non-biological ties in a way that is worthy of being honored. And yet, we falter when it comes to acknowledging that on Father's Day. I mentioned before that Father's Day sometimes feels like we're selling out to the patriarchy, which literally means fathers rule. We've been fighting the constraints of the patriarchy that we all live in for a very long time now. All of us, men and women. It's been an uneven and uphill battle, but significant progress has been made. It is still a battle. The struggle is not over. We do not yet have gender equality on many fronts. In fact, the front has expanded as we have come to recognize far more variety in human gender than we had first acknowledged. I am waiting for the day when Hallmark issues a collection of Father's Day cards that includes gay dads and trans dads. And I don't think I'm waiting in vain, because you know what I found the last time I was card shopping? At Smith's. So we're talking generic land here. There are wedding anniversary cards for gay and lesbian couples. They didn't used to be there, but they are now. We are getting there, but it is slow. Now, of course, the problem with patriarchy in a church, even one in which a significant number of people do not acknowledge God as any sort of reality, is that the image of God as Father has been used and abused for centuries to keep oppressed people, particularly, but not always, women, in their place under the thumb of male people. I get it. I stand here before you as a woman minister who inherited a legacy of exclusively male leadership and authority. And I'm happy to say that I do whatever I can to chip away at that destructive image of God as exclusively male and powerful. I agree totally that the God of the patriarchy needs to be undone. Unlike many of you, I'm not willing to give up on God. I am very willing, however, to give up on the singular image of a God of power and male privilege, whose primary focus is judging our worth and dismissing us to whatever extent we are disobedient to the patriarchal structure that flows from said God. However, there are many more images of God than that one, even many more male images of God, but that's the one that has assumed priority in our world over the past 700 centuries or so. And while it offers advantages, or it did offer advantages, for developing humanity at some fuzzy and very ancient time, it hasn't worked to the advantage of our species for quite a while now. So to celebrate Father's Day and risk having it look like we're paying allegiance to the patriarchal God of history does feel downright wrong. I would suggest that the UUA went overboard in editing the music in our hymnal in an effort to avoid that pitfall. And while they succeeded, they did so at great cost. As you will see in the hymn we will sing later, there are images of totally non-patriarchal male attributes of God that enrich and sustain us. Now, all of this leaves us squarely in the midst of a dilemma. How do we encourage and respect changing images of masculinity in our world? While fatherhood is only one aspect of being masculine, it's a powerful one. And as long as the primary image of God is patriarchal, it's going to be hard to separate human men and social patriarchy from the image of God as a divine male patriarch. So here's my really short answer. Do away with binary systems of gender entirely. However, that short answer is only going to work in a really long run. It's going to take us a very long time to dismantle the infrastructure of our society and our psyche to achieve a humanity that does not discriminate or assign particular value or worth based on apparent or declared sex. There are genuine differences between biological sexes. Think, for example, of the advantage of a woman who has in bonding with her newborn baby. Her whole body is flooded with oxytocin, a hormone that primes her for attachment. She experiences a strong desire to be with and to care for her baby. Perhaps that's best illustrated by the character of Rachel on the sitcom Friends, and some of you may remember this, who, when standing in front of the bassinet facing her newborn daughter, said, "I miss her. I'm standing here looking at her, and I actually miss her." That's a powerful longing that no man has access to, no matter how devoted a father he is. He has no access to that oxytocin rush. Somehow, we need to be able to account for difference without making value judgments. And we cannot afford to sit around and wait for this to happen. Left to its own devices, it's in the nature of any system to simply continue to run as programmed unless or until a change is made. As we've learned from our efforts to reshape patriarchy, the system resists programming. It resists reprogramming a lot. It won't go away if we ignore it or wish for change. We have to act boldly, intentionally. All of us, not just some. So here's what Father's Day calls us to in 2021. It's a call to recognize and respond to our discomfort with the traditions of patriarchy that restrict human fathers from engaging their full range of humanity in relationship with their children. That's a long sentence, so I'm going to read it again. We are called to respond to our discomfort with the traditions of patriarchy that restrict human fathers from engaging the full range of their humanity in relationship with their children. It's a call to identify the goals and ideals of fathering and make them known to our youth, It's a call to affirm and promote fathers who can answer the question, "Papa, do you love me?" with the same kinds of responses the Maasai warrior did in the story we read. That father claimed his child as part of the network of love that defined the father. He named his child. He declared the length and depth of his love and accepted every challenge his son presented him with. He cared for him, he protected him, even when the son was overwhelmed and disappointed him. He pledged to protect his son even if the very foundation and defining custom of his people fell apart and his son lost his original identity. He promised to teach his son how to face fear. He promised to be with him, and he based his entire commitment on his undying love for his child. This is a picture of a man not bound by cultural ideas of masculinity that demand that he not admit to love or the desire to nurture children. This is a man who knows how to be vulnerable, how to admit to feelings, to share them, and to use them constructively. This is actually a pretty modern feminist man. Now, some of us have had fathers like him. Some of us have had other men in our lives like him. These are the men that we need to celebrate Father's Day with. The men we need to celebrate Father's Day for are the sons and daughters of this story. The youth of our nation and our world who need prophetic women and men in their lives to show them how to live, how to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. All of us learn what love feels like. Its power both to sustain us and to change us from whoever takes care of us before we're able to take care of ourselves. Our images of nurturing are set by how we are nurtured. Sometimes we spend a lifetime trying to correct that learning. Sometimes we spend a lifetime expanding and building on it. Often we spend our lives doing both because no parent-child relationship is perfect. Sometimes we spend a lot of time learning how to forgive imperfection or how to separate ourselves from criminal abuse. It's all part of life's work. As Unitarian Universalists who proclaim as a founding source that the prophetic deeds of women and men are what enable us to confront evil and injustice with the transforming power of love. As people able to embrace the truth of our musical reflection this morning and know that what we teach our children matters, we need to intentionally celebrate Father's Day. We need to temporarily suspend the influence of the patriarchy so that we can encourage, affirm, and promote healthy fathers who love their children. We need to lift up examples and offer concrete information about how to be a loving father in new ways. This story, Papa, Do You Love Me, is one example. And if you go home and Google feminist fathers, you will find a whole lot more. The website everydayfeminism.com, it's really easy to remember, everydayfeminism.com has a list of 50 suggestions. Some are concrete and relatively easy. Others are more demanding and require real commitment to a future ideal of gender equality that we can only glimpse from here. But even if your child-rearing days are over, you can still benefit from pursuing these resources and passing them on to others. Not necessarily just the website, although that's good, but if you can incorporate some of what you learn and share that on a personal basis with people who are raising children, that's amazing. We need to do this, to celebrate Father's Day with joy in every way that we can, to equip and empower fathers now and fathers of the future. Because in the end, we all recognize that we are tender-heart, all asking the same question. Papa, do you love me? The life of the world depends on being able to hear the answer yes, and know that truth in our bones. Shalom and amen. Now, we had set aside a little spot for response time. Technically, that would be pushing it, but I'm willing to push it if somebody has something that they want to offer at this point. And if you'd like time to just mull that over, that's fine too, because I'm hoping most of us will be together in the social hall shortly for town hall meeting. And yes, there is ice water that's been chilling for 3 days, and I set the setting in the refrigerator, literally, it's not a number, it says coldest. So hopefully that will help to mitigate the heat somewhat. I'm going to invite you now to take your hymnal and open to number 23, standing as you are able, and let's sing our closing hymn, Bring Many Names. And really pay attention to the lyrics, because there are some amazing, lovely images of fathers and mothers as God that break with the patriarchy and enrich us all.
Celebrated
Thank you. Please join me now in the words for extinguishing our chalice that are in your bulletin. May our hearts become a torch for all that we have heard and learned and thought here. May we become its living flame of truth and love. Shalom and amen. May you honor the prophetic men in your life, transforming the world as you encounter it from the legacy they pass down to you. May your tender heart be your guide. Shalom and amen.